Hey guys, guess what? Our round one matchup is set. So, we are back with another episode, and yes, it is just me, Sam Wallace, for this episode. Sam Driscoll could not join us, so you guys are just going to be getting me for this episode. So, yeah, definitely some things that have been happening around the league and with the Hurricanes. But as always, we also would like to get you guys into seats at Hurricane games, especially this weekend. There are two home games as this episode is being released on Friday. So there is the Rangers game and there is the Toronto game. And there's also the playoffs too that's going to be coming up. And again, we'd like to get you into these seats. So if you want to use our promo code Caniac Reports, all one word on SeatGeek, you get $20 off. Not bad, is it? So I would definitely use that if you want to use that to not pay as much money as what the ticket price suggests. And remember, you can also use that for anything coming up to a local venue near you, whether that's to a concert or to a comedy show, whatever. I went to a comedy show recently, so good way to use it for that. So another thing too is we have a link for donations. So if you feel like you want to donate, there is a link to that in both our YouTube, if you're watching us, the description in that, and also wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, and all that. And speaking of YouTube, remember, hit like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. And also, if you're listening to us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, please leave us a rating and a review and follow us. It really does help our podcast out. So, quite a few things that have been actually happening around in the NHL and with the Hurricanes. One thing I thought was pretty cool is Macklin Celebrini. If you guys don't know him, he plays for the San Jose Sharks, and he was considered a top rookie heading into this year. Well, he's certainly playing like a top rookie because he has now set the team's rookie points record for the San Jose Sharks. So, not bad, kid. I believe he has around 62, 63 points, but he is an excellent two-way player. He can play on both ends of the ice very well, and he is heck of a skater. I really enjoy watching him, especially in his limited time that I've seen him playing against the Hurricanes. So, congrats to the kid. He is only 18 years old. I do believe the sky's the limit. I honestly think the potential for him is to be a franchise player. And I think he's going to be an important player for San Jose's future moving forward. Another thing, too, is this was devastating, I thought, to hear. But Winnipeg had a prospect in Chaz Lucius. He's actually the brother of a Hurricanes prospect, I believe, in Cruz Lucius. But if you guys didn't know or didn't hear, he decided to retire from professional hockey, and he's 21 years old, and he did it because of a hereditary tissue disorder. Really feel for him because I'm sure it's not easy making a decision to retire that young, obviously, but he probably knew that he needed to retire just so he could focus on his health. Not easy for athletes to do that because they probably practice for so long just to get to where they're at. So I really hate it for him. I hate it for his family. My thoughts and prayers are with the Lucius family. So another thing, though, about Winnipeg that I thought was really cool is the Manitoba government, which is the city that they are in, will provide up to 300,000 whiteout, I believe, whiteout gear for whiteout parties outside Jets arenas for playoff games. Now, I'm telling you, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but those whiteouts that the Jets have, especially during playoffs and outside the arena, boy, especially when it's inside the arena and you can see it, it looks really cool. I really do. I am marveled by the huge wideout that Winnipeg has. And honestly, if you look at the Jets right now, you could say they are a cup contender. I think they have an excellent team. They have, I think, a very good goalie in Connor Hellebuck. Obviously, he had a pretty disappointing playoffs last year. It was against Colorado, I believe, in the first round. But I think he's going to come back a little bit more, try to get things more going in this year's playoffs for Winnipeg. They also have great players in Mark Scheifele, Nikolai Ehlers. Ehlers is coming off of a contract, so he's definitely a player I think the Hurricanes should keep an eye on if Winnipeg doesn't resign him. And they also have Cole Perfetti. And just on the back end, I guess you could say probably not as much star talent. They do have Josh Morrissey, who's kind of leading that blue line, but you also have other players in Neil Pionk. But I do think this is an excellent team. I definitely do think if they win the Stanley Cup, I would not be surprised because I think they're that good. So, another thing I do want to talk about is Ottawa. And as you can tell, Ottawa, if you look at the standings, they are firmly cemented in a playoff position. And you know what? Good for them. I remember one of our season predictions back in September before the playoffs. If you haven't listened to it, you can listen to it. It's still up, obviously. But one of my predictions for the standings is Ottawa to make the playoffs. And you know what? I was right. I really was. And they're playing like I thought they could play because I think Ottawa really does have all the ingredients to be a playoff team. Yes, goaltending probably is a bit of a question, but they did get Linus Olmark, so that I do think they really patched up the goaltending. You also have defensemen in Jake Sanderson and Thomas Chabot. And you have, I think, good forwards in Tim Stutzla. Hopefully, I pronounced that right. Brady Kachuk, obviously, he's a forward. He's a menacing forward because he plays just like his brother, a big physical power forward type of guy. You have Dylan Cousins, who they recently acquired, who has been really good for them recently. So they have a really, really good young forward group. Obviously, they have a veteran, I think, in Claude Giroux, who's been very good. They have Drake Batherson, a very, very talented, I think, team. And that is their first time, actually, if you look at the standings of them making the playoffs, is the first time they made the playoffs in 8 years. So they're definitely, I think, due for a playoff run. I remember when they were really good when they had the likes of Jason Spezza, Daniel Alfredson, and all of those legendary players. Danny Heatley is another player that played really good for them. But another thing to round out the NHL is Montreal, the Canadiens, have a very talented prospect. He's ranked as one of the best prospects in the NHL, and Ivan Demidov. And apparently, news has it that he has been released from his KHL contract, along with another Russian player, which I will get to for the Hurricanes, and signed a 3-year deal with the Canadiens. I'm sure Montreal is excited that he is finally going to be able to play because this is a player who I think has shades a little bit of a Kirill Kaprizov type of player. And I really think he can be very dangerous, very good player for an already stacked Montreal forward group with Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield. It's going to get better for Montreal. I really do. I love their coach and Martin St. Louis. So it's definitely going to be a boost. And it looks like if you look at the standings right now, as we're recording this, seems like we're starting to get that playoff picture because we're having teams like Columbus, the Rangers, thank goodness, because I do not want the Rangers to make the playoffs. But if you look at the wild card positions, you have Ottawa in the first wild card position at 90 points, Montreal at 87 points, and then right below that, so you have Detroit at 79 points, along with the Islanders and Columbus and the Rangers, all at 79 points. So playoff picture is pretty solidified, but there is a couple things. Well, I would say one thing in the East to keep an eye out. If you notice, Ottawa is at 90 points as I'm recording this. And then you have Florida at 94 points. So there are 4 points separating Ottawa and Florida. Just imagine for a second if Ottawa somehow passes Florida. You'd have a Tampa Ottawa round one facing each other. Then you would have Florida and Toronto facing each other. And imagining Florida and Toronto facing each other in the first round, I can already probably hear the screams of Toronto fans like, please, no, we do not want to face Florida in the first round. Honestly, I'd like to see it just because even though I think changes will be coming to Toronto, obviously they have Mitch Marner and Don Tavares. I'm not saying both are going to go, but if Toronto does get knocked down in the first round, which and I think if they're playing against Florida, I think a lot of fans are going to be pulling for Florida. I'm one of them because I do think overall they're the better team than Toronto. But if they do beat Toronto in the first round, I really do wonder if players like John Tavares, Mitch Marner come back or not. I do. And I've said this before in many episodes. I'll say it here again. But I just think that core four that they have is not going to be enough to win a Stanley Cup because of the amount of money Toronto gave those 4 players in their contract. So that's one thing to keep an eye on and with the standings because it's definitely very, very interesting. I think if you look out west, Minnesota and St. Louis are kind of battling for the first wild card position. And in the Pacific, you kind of have LA and Edmonton fighting it out on who will have home ice advantage. So a couple races to keep a look at. So I can't wait for playoff hockey. Really, really can't. And now I am going to talk about the Hurricanes here. But like I said with Ivan Demidov, there is another Russian player. He's a prospect for the Hurricanes that everybody knows, and Alexander Nikishin. Now, it's not official. I haven't seen anything official as of yet, but it does sound like SKA, his Russian team, has released Nikishkin and will sign a 2-year entry level contract with the Hurricanes. This doesn't surprise me. Kirill Kaprizov did this with Minnesota. It was a 2-year entry level contract. Then he got that big $7.8 million something dollar contract with Minnesota. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I know we labeled the last episode as Nikishin watch. It's imminent. It went from a watch to imminent because I do think he is coming very, very soon. And what's funny, if you follow Eric Tolsky on X/Twitter, wherever you call it, he posted a post that just had a plane emoji on it. So I wonder if he's referencing the kitchen. He could be not. But I kind of hope it is because I would love to see Nikishin get in a few games before the end of the season, especially in a stretch where ultimately, yes, and I'm feeling it too, these games don't really matter. And now I do realize these are still games. So I'm not saying this is an excuse for the players to play bad. And I don't think they've been playing ultimately bad. They just haven't really had that intensity to win, which I understand. And there are other teams that have made the playoffs that haven't been playing well either. Florida's one of them too. They haven't been playing well. And I think another team too, Washington is the other team who will be facing tonight. Because I am recording most of this episode before the Washington game. Obviously, when I get to recapping Washington, I would obviously have watched it, but it's definitely going to be exciting, hopefully, to see Nikishin in a Hurricane sweater before the season ends because I think it'll benefit the Hurricanes. I think it'll benefit Rod just to see how he can play because obviously you're not going to put him in. Listen, I love Nick Kitchen. I think he is going to be a stud for this team. And I understand Brendan Moore for doing this. He is not going to put a rookie in over a veteran like Dmitry Orlov, like Brent Burns. He just isn't. So I'm hoping he plays a few games before the season's end, because if he does come over by then, it's more realistic to see him play those games than the playoff games. So I really can't wait. I think it's going to be awesome. Who knows? Might get his jersey. But another thing too is we got a response from Rod Brindamore. If you guys remember the Jalen Chatfield fight from the game where we played against Washington here at home around a week ago, he had some remarks or he had some comments to say about that Chatfield fight. And just to paraphrase him, because I can't remember one like word for word of what he said, but he basically was saying the media is making this out bigger than it needs to be. And he said something else at the end, but that was the big thing, is that the media is making it out bigger than it is. And I mean, I do think to some extent that is true. But at the same time, I don't think from, again, this is just from what I'm hearing from other people like Elliot Friedman, because I like to hear their opinions. I know Friedman, like a lot of the stuff that he says are pretty accurate, even if it's projecting the future. But I do remember him saying that if it comes down to something like that incident again between Chatfield and McMichael, he wouldn't be surprised seeing the NHL being like, okay, you players need to stop this. So while I do think the media really, really did make this a bigger scene than it actually was, I mean, it really isn't the worst thing that I've seen. It just hasn't. So I do agree with Brendan Moore. I defend him on what he says on the whole Jalen Chatfield thing, because I think he is 100% absolutely correct. And this is coming from a guy who does have questions about Brendan Moore. So I will agree with him on that take on the whole fight on Chatfield. And another thing too, this is probably the biggest thing that came out recently, but it's official. The Hurricanes will face the New Jersey Devils in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And boy, am I excited for it, because I love playoff hockey. Now, do I think the Hurricanes can win against the Devils? I think they can. Now, I think hopefully, because we do have some games left in the regular season, I'm hoping that this team remains healthy, because regardless of the play, the most important thing is you made the playoffs. Now you have to kind of have that mindset of, okay, we got to be as healthy as we can so that we can make the best playoff run and hopefully win the Stanley Cup this season, because every team needs to have that mentality heading into the playoffs. How deep of a run can we get to where we can win the Stanley Cup? And being healthy is certainly, I would say, at the top, because these games really don't matter. And I mean, I can't wait. I really can't. Now, with Carolina and New Jersey, they have some injuries. They have Jack Hughes, who is, I think, one of the biggest blows to the team, being out for the entire playoffs. You also have a player in Dougie Hamilton. Now, I've had criticisms of Dougie Hamilton before, but I do still think he is a very good offensive defenseman. Do I think he disappears during the playoffs? Absolutely. But having him out, I think benefits the Hurricanes. Really, really do. So I think the Hurricanes are definitely going to be a favorites in this playoff run. But again, Hurricanes have to be healthy. And I think we also need to know what goaltending is going to be like. in the playoffs, because we know playoffs is completely different than the regular season. But if you look at this current stretch of games right now, goaltending has not been good. And while these games don't matter, I think the most important thing to look at when it comes to these games is goaltending. Because, I mean, even though you've already solidified where you are in the standings, pretty much, these goalies have to play well, because there's going to be competition between Kochetkov and Anderson on who Brindamore trusts going into the playoffs. So I think they need to uh, play very good in these remaining games in the season. Now, if I was a betting man, I think it's probably going to be Anderson in as kind of the starting goalie in round one. But I do think we'll see more of a tandemish type of goaltending. I still think we're still going to have that one goalie. Every team kind of has that one goalie. You don't really swap between goalies every other game or every game. So we'll see how that goes. But if I was to bet, I think Anderson starts game one. Game two, I think he starts as well. And then I think game three is when we'll probably see Kochetkov, because that was part of the reason why last year in the playoffs, where we didn't, I think goaltending was the reason kind of why we got eliminated. So, you know what? I'll get back to talking about the Hurricanes, and we'll recap the two games here. But before we do that, let's get to our sponsor real quick here. This NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going. That just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out, and games left for you to get in the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Bill Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. NHL and NHL team marks are the property of the NHL and its teams. NHL 2025, all rights reserved. But yeah, so back to the Hurricanes and this matchup that they will have with the Devils. I definitely do think they're going to win the series. I think if I were to project how many games it will take, I would say it could take up to I would say 6 games. I remember when we faced New Jersey in the playoffs before, very recently, and they won it in 5. The reason why I'm going to say 6 is because I think New Jersey is going to have some sort of a revenge factor to their game because of what happened during the last playoff matchup with us. But I still do think Carolina's going to win. And New Jersey, I mean, what's funny, if you remember earlier in the season, I mean, I think this is one of the top games of the season. I mean, it was a all-out war at home against the Devils, because there were a lot of fights, a lot of physicality. Do I think that's going to happen in this round. I think there's going to be some physicality just because that's just how playoffs are. But with New Jersey, I don't really see a team that throws the body around. And if you're a team that's not going to throw the body around a lot against a team like the Hurricanes, I think that makes the Hurricanes even more of a dangerous team. And that's how I think a big part of why the Hurricanes won, in the fact that New Jersey just wasn't physical. And honestly, their defense and goaltending was trash during the playoffs, too. Now, they do have Markstrom. So I do believe they did get better in goaltending. So I think if New Jersey would somehow win, it'd be the goaltending battle. Because even though I like Anderson, I like Kachekov, I I think it's debatable on which team has the better goalie, Markstrom or Anderson or Kachekov. And another thing too, even though I am examining this round one playoff thing, I am going to get Sam to give his thoughts on the first round matchup between the Hurricanes and Devils, and we might do like a preview episode maybe, but these are just kind of my initial thoughts when I saw that it's became official. And it was the worst kept secret ever. Like, we knew we were going to face the Devils well before it became official. Well before. So it's going to be a fun series. It really is. And it gives me an excuse to play the song "To Hell with the Devil" by Striper. If you know that song, credit to you. But it's gonna be very, very fun. And now we're going to recap the two games. And again, now the Buffalo game, I'm not going to spend much time on. Now the Washington game, I might, because I don't know yet on how this game is going to be played. It's going to be played here very, very soon. Just looking at the time here of me recording this. But the Buffalo game, I mean, you can tell, I think, that the Hurricanes, I they weren't as invested into the game as Buffalo was, but Buffalo's been playing very good recently. I give credit to Buffalo, and honestly, I'm not that surprised because I've always thought Buffalo on paper was a very good team. It's just how they executed down the ice has been very bad because of the long playoff drought that this team has been in. I believe it officially marked them, I think, yesterday as being eliminated from the playoffs for 13 straight seasons. Yeah, that's bad. And I thought the Hurricanes playoff drought was bad. That's very, very bad. And I do feel for Buffalo fans, but I do think Buffalo was I, do I think Buffalo kind of was the better team? Mm, I would say just a little bit yes, even though I thought Carolina did play, I think, offensively pretty good hockey. I think that's kind of what it has been. Offensively, I think they've been playing good. Now, I think here in the Buffalo game, I thought it was more about the quantity of the shots than the quality, just because I didn't think they generated a lot of high danger chances. I thought a lot of their shots was aiming at Reimer's chest, and I love Reimer, ex-Hurricane guy, very, very good player. I'm happy he got the shutout. I have no harsh feelings toward Buffalo, but just from me observing that game, I didn't think Carolina put on a lot of high danger chances. I thought out of all the shots they had, I think it was like 32 shots or something. I thought there were maybe you could probably count on one hand the amount of high danger chances they had against Reimer. And then when Buffalo had a chance, they scored on Kochetkov. And with Kochetkov, I'm telling you, it's frustrating looking at him. Now, yeah, it is, because I don't blame the first and third goal on him. The first goal was Tage Thompson. You had Alex Tuck scoring the second goal, and then you had Paterka scoring the third goal. In fact, I thought the Thompson goal, I thought that I kind of blamed that on kind of Slavin. And I'm a huge Slavin fan, but Slavin, I don't know what he was doing there. I didn't think he did enough to stop the shot from Tage Thompson. Makes it 1-0. And then you have Alex Tuck. Now, to me, that's the goal I think Kachekov needs to have. I know he was on a breakaway, and I think Brent Burns certainly has blame there too. But I do think if Kachekov's dialed in, I think he makes that save. I just do. And he wasn't dialed in this game. And then the third goal, that's probably the out of all three goals, I don't blame Kachekov the most because, yeah, Hall kind of got stripped of the puck, and it turned into a 2-on-1, and Paterka was able to get the one timer and score. So that was pretty much it for the game. Other than the three goals, like I mean, even though Carolina had plenty of shots, I didn't think a lot of them were good quality shots. That's just how it was. But the next game is the Washington game. This was a game that had a lot of momentum swings, I think is a correct word for this game. In the first period, Carolina was flat out dominant. And unlike the Buffalo game, they actually got really, really good scoring chances. In fact, I think they should have scored a lot more than two. We've seen posts from Jackson Blake, Seth Jarvis in that period. It could have been more than just 2-0. Now eventually ended the period with it being 2-1. But just going through the goals here, you have Logan Stankoven scoring from Svech and Roslovic. I mean, good for Svech for getting a point. I think he played well this game. No. I don't know what it is with Svech, but it seems like he's playing he's a completely different player, I think, from the way he started the season. So, that's how much uh negative thoughts I have toward Svech right now. But you also have Jackson Blake scoring, and that was a goal that had some controversy, believe it or not, because for those of you who are watching this game, you notice this was an ESPN broadcast, and they have their own rule analysts and all that type of stuff. And what's funny with the rule analyst guy is he said, I'd be surprised if this wasn't a goal. Why? It was obvious Tom Wilson pushed Jackson Blake into his own goalie, and there is visual evidence of the puck being across the line before the net was dislodged. That is a good goal. So I don't know where he got his information, but that is a good goal. And he kept saying it throughout the game of like, well, that's not a good goal. I'm still mystified by that not being it's a good goal. Read the rule book. It's a good goal. And even if you did mess up, at least admit it. But he didn't. So that was my beef with the broadcasting. And also there's the whole Kevin Weeks thing that I know Canes fans just love right now. But it's 2-0. Hurricanes are winning. First period, it is dominant Hurricanes hockey. And you can tell they are in this trying to win it. And then you have Washington going on the power play. And then you have Pierre-Luc Dubois scoring for Washington. And that was a play where, honestly, I don't really blame Anderson on that play because it was a defensive breakdown between Chatfield and Orlov. I don't know, honestly, which player it was that was supposed to defend Dubois. To me, it looks like Orlov, but I think you could also argue Chatfield maybe was supposed to defend him. But nobody was, and they just let him come right in and score, make it 2-1. But the Canes are still winning. it's just a little bit disappointing because with a dominant period like that, with having over 30 scoring chances, you think this team would have more goals, but no, they don't. And in the second period, it's Washington taking over the game in the second period. You have Dylan Strom scoring on the power play goal, and then Nick Dowd and Tom Wilson. The Dylan Strom goal, I mean, to me, the moments before that kind of led to the goal, I would say, because we saw Washington in that second period getting physical. Heck, we saw Ovechkin throwing the body moments before that goal. You had Ovechkin throwing the body at Eric Robinson. Jordan Martinook was another player he threw the body on. So it was Washington trying to establish a physical presence, and it worked. It did. I mean, I give props to Washington. They were fine. The physicalness they were trying to use against us was working. And I believe that contributed to the Dylan Strom goal. I mean, obviously, Washington was on the power play, so Strom scores on it. I mean, that's to me a goal. I mean, to me, it is what it is. There's I mean, the Hurricanes, I would say probably really let Washington fight for it because I think out of all the goals, that's probably the least goal I'm concerned about. But the other goals, um, to me, the Tom Wilson goal, I thought that was on Jacob Slavin. And as much as I love Jacob Slavin, he has not been playing good recently. But again, you can also say that these games don't really matter. Now, I would argue with this Washington game, this game was a little bit different compared to the Detroit, Boston, and Buffalo game. The reason why? Because the Canes, you could tell, wanted to win this game. Now, Washington wanted to win this game as well. I'm not saying that they didn't, but this game meant something to Carolina, and they couldn't do it. And I think part of why they lost was the physicality. They were getting pushed around. And listen, you're going to need physicality in the playoffs. No doubt about it. So, I mean, when I look at this team on paper, I mean, I think they have big guys that can push around. You have guys I think in Eric Robinson, Svetch in this game did lay a hit, which I was proud of. I can't remember which. I think it was probably second period he laid a hit on, so I was a little bit happy to see that. But you have Robinson, you have Stahl, you have Svetch. If Carrier comes back, he's another physical guy that can help bring some physicality. It's just the problem is they don't use it. So I don't know where the blame lies, if it's on the player or if it's on the coach. But regardless of what style you play, heading into the playoffs, you need to have physicality. So that second period was just to me an example of Carolina letting the physicality get to them. And they are a bit of a smaller team compared to Washington because we have lots of small players. But we do have a handful of big players too. And obviously you have Nick Dowd scoring too on his goal. And out of all the goals to me, that's the goal I'm like, Anderson probably needs to have because it's a shot that first is a rebound shot, and then Dowd gets his own rebound, and he just finds the hole between Anderson's arm and his body, and he scores. So I wasn't a big fan of that goal from Anderson. Really was not. I don't think Anderson played bad, but I think that's the goal you need to save. So, eh, eh. And I think overall with Anderson, I mean, I thought he played a decent game, but if we're getting to the point to where he lets in one bad goal a game like he did in the playoffs, that is not a recipe for success. It just isn't. And then in the third period, that's when Carolina got back to their mojo because third period was kind of like the first. Carolina came out really playing very good, and you have Jordan Martinook, which to me I thought was the best line, was the Stahl Martinook Stankoven line. I thought that line was just excellent. And it showed because you had Martinook scoring from a shot ways out outside I believe of the hash marks too. So good for Martinook for laying a shot there, and good for Stahl, who was, to me, I thought was the person that helped make the goal as he screened Lindgren. So Stahl's taking advantage of his size there, and he's able to screen Lindgren. So that's good. And then you have Seth Jarvis scoring to tie the game. So 4-4, head into overtime. Not much happened in the overtime. The only thing I did not like is they called a trip on Burns, which Ovechkin, he literally just fell. No trip whatsoever. But you head to a shootout, and you have Pierre-Luc Dubois scoring. So that goal I like to see Anderson save, maybe. But you also need your players to score on Lindgren as well, which is the players that we had. Jackson Blake, I'm fine with. Svetch, ideally, I don't want to see Svetch in the shootouts, but I don't think he's the worst option. And then you have Sean Walker. Now, from what I have heard, Sean Walker, well, actually, when it comes to the Hurricane practices, is that they do shootouts, and Sean Walker has been the most consistent shootout goal guy. Okay, but to me, at the same time, I think this is where you probably need some common sense. The reason why I say common sense is it's obvious that Walker isn't as skillful. And I love Walker. I really do. But are you telling me he should go over a guy like Taylor Hall? Really? Should he go over a guy like maybe Jack Roslovic? Mm. I don't know. That to me was a bit of a head scratcher. And I was just like, really? You're playing him over a few guys, you're playing him over. Now, again, I'm not saying that our big offensive guys were going to score. In fact, I kind of knew heading into the show, I was like, yeah, we're probably not going to win because we're just not going to shootouts in general. But I do think you have to have some common sense when it comes to determining who's going to take the shootouts. So I was not a big fan of the whole Scott Walker. It really did make me, again, question Brendan Moore. It just did. So, but Hurricanes, they have now lost 4 games in a row. They did get a point against Washington, but you still lost that game. So it's still 4 losses in a row. Hopefully they can win one this weekend at home, whether it's against Toronto or the Rangers. So we will see you guys Monday.